changing the world. That's what my passion is. My passion is built around a belief that we are so much more capable of experiencing a quality of living and a quality of community than we currently have. And I've just been, aspiring to figure out how to achieve that and to take on initiatives that enable that. And as I've looked around deeply and studied and become a real student of change, and particularly societal change, I've observed that it is a very piecemeal, unrefined process. Unrefined meaning that it's not like we've stepped back very precisely and looked at what works and what doesn't work. Like if you're working in an organization and you looked at how you tried something and it didn't work, and then you step back and you redesign, which is how it works when you have a sort of a closed system. But in an open system, there's nobody like thinking for the whole usually, and so you just have a lot of experiments of one. And I've been a student of those experiments in a variety of ways. I've done a lot of research, action research, and just observed that it's a very unevolved arena. And we're excited by the content. Let's change this or let's change that. But the process is usually undeveloped, and people keep bumping up against the same stuff. So as a result of that, I've tried things, and I've seen stuff work, and I've seen stuff not work. And this new model, or this new social change formula, has basically been my best practices, and not just my best practices, but what I've observed as best practices, as well as stuff that I've evolved through my own trial and error. Well, many of our systems, as we can see around governmental systems, environmental systems, political systems, economic systems, are stressed at the moment. And there aren't good solutions. The easy solutions have been tried, and they are not cutting it for the most part. So as we see the systems start to deteriorate and have breakdowns, that creates an opening for there to be new receptivity for other strategies that wouldn't have been as easily received had the systems not been so stressed and had they not begun to break down. So that invites the question, what are good strategies to enable the large system transformations that are required? And to that end, I have been researching and experimenting and innovating for the last 25 years with some such strategies. And I've applied them in a variety of areas, from ecological change to working in low-income neighborhoods, to working with large organizations, large corporations, to working in the area of emergency preparedness, homeland security. Pretty much wherever the openings have been in society for change, I've been experimenting. And so I have come to call this a new social change formula and a reinvention of how we think about the very issue of social change. Let's take the most prominent system that we're observing, the climate system, which now has increased amount of hurricanes. And Katrina and Rita are two examples. Local governments were not up to the job at the level that everyone hoped that they would be. Federal government, we saw, certainly wasn't. We just didn't have a lot of good strategies, not to mention the fact that there's this increasing amount of hurricane and weather change that we have to deal with. So what do? There aren't good systems, and we don't have a lot of resiliency to respond. And just community, the fact that there was not enough community built so that people could really take care of one another. So those are some indications of one system driven by the climate change system that is now in this major stress, but playing out on all the other social systems that we have to deal with. Well, the current social change system is very much legislating change. So when there is a problem, people lobby, new laws get passed, And the goal is ultimately to use legislation to get people to change behavior in some form or another. And it's a very blunt instrument, and it works for incremental change, more or less. It's one of the few systems we've got that has got some workability for change. Another way that change is done, it's not really how you get the long-term change, but it's a short-term catalyst, is a social protest or boycotting or, marching, where you say no to something, say that's not okay. But what, again, we find falls short there is that we don't have a yes and a how-to, other than maybe passing a law. But how do you pass a law that's going to change what happened in New Orleans? You need other strategies. And so we need to rethink this whole process. Another way that the old social change model has been designed is financial incentives. The hope that if you change the tax laws, you get people to change their behavior. And again, in some cases, it has some impetus in the right direction, but we have to, it's not innovative enough. It doesn't really deal with the fundamentals of why the system broke down in the first place. So those are some of the traditional ways that social change has been done.